We found out about this initially at the World Championships in Eugene, right before the first round of the 400 went off. Word came down that he was provisionally suspended. We now know that the suspension will last 3 years. Whereabouts violations and tampering centers around him altering an email that he used to explain why he missed that third and final test. He updated his address in the whereabouts system because he was between residences, moving from Greensboro to Knoxville, Tennessee, obviously, because that his dad, formerly the North Carolina A&T coach, was going to move on to University of Tennessee. Address apparently didn't fully get updated in the system. They went to his old address. He was at his new address. And the information, that email, he altered it. Thus, the 3-year suspension could have been 4, but he immediately admitted to it, according to AIU, and then knocked it down to just 3 years. Your thoughts on this case and the future for Randolph Ross?
Yeah, first of all, great story here in Track and Field News. I'm guessing they got an interview with Randolph Ross because he's at the Bowerman Awards, which is kind of weird, having a suspended athlete at the collegiate award ceremony. But we're in a weird world, right? With crazy times. But he did a good job of getting Randolph to kind of really detail what happened. Mm-hmm. And when I read through this all of his 3 missed tests and his trying to cover his tracks, it all came off very honest in my way, in my opinion. And it also came off as like, he just wasn't taking it that seriously of how important it is that if you screw this up, it's going to mess with your career. And I think he didn't realize it was going to mess with his career until after the 3rd one. And then he was like, oh, I don't want my career to get messed up. I'm going to then say I said the wrong date, and then it gets even worse. He kind of started digging his hole even deeper. And I kind of think this is a classic case of just a young athlete not really being educated enough to understand the magnitude of whereabouts and how serious AIU takes it. I mean, see Christian Coleman, he was like, I was getting a burrito and I didn't know, and all these things. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lack of, some athletes just aren't really aware of the magnitude of a simple mistake.
And here's the thing. You take the first mistake, and then a lot of times, not just in this case, but in any portion of your life or anybody's life, sometimes you try to fix the first mistake and you just compound the problem.
Yeah.
Right? You make a bigger mistake, which in this case was getting to the tampering level. Because I could see this situation just being a 1-year ban if there was no tampering, if there's just missed tests. We've seen that before. Missed tests. Oh, it's supposed to be 2, but you cooperated, it gets knocked down to 1. Especially because the Track and Field News article details this. And this is tough because, they don't release every single date of every single test. We really don't have that yet, but it feels like he was tested a bunch during this same time frame. You could have seen this get knocked down to 1, meaning he would have missed last year's World Championships, which for him would have been devastating. Worked his whole life, makes the home World Championships, but it would not nearly have been as bad as the prospect of being out for 3 years where you miss an Olympics and you're missing the prime Olympics of your career. And
for 400-meter runner.
Yeah, which is so valuable. So I know people usually don't think like that. They don't think in the moment of, oh man, I'll take this short-term lump because the alternative is so much worse. But that's what played out here, right? If you're reading along and following on the story, and I buy the story. I read the Track and Field News.
It did not seem fishy at all. It seemed very like, this is exactly what a 21-year-old would do.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but just like what we know of this process. And in his mind, right, he did a lot of things right. It wasn't like he was hiding. The second missed test.
Going away to like some nefarious campsite to stay away in the trees.
Right.
And he's probably also thinking like, they're testing me at NCAAs or they're testing me at USAs. Like, what's the big deal? And they don't realize like, it's not about how you can get tested 1 million times. They don't get the 1,000,000th and 1 time. Then none of the previous 1,000,000 mattered.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with an authority figure, whether or not it's the AIU, USADA, anybody, you don't want to lie. you don't want to present false evidence to them, right? That's just like, for them, the system can't operate if people aren't being truthful with them. So it looks like, according to the article, lost his scholarship at Tennessee, not allowed to compete because he has a suspension. Although it sounded like he was going to appeal it, right? Because technically it wasn't a positive test. It was for whereabouts. I don't know how that process will go. The article alludes to a swimmer from Stanford being in a similar process. So I don't know if there's going to be precedent for that by the time we get to it. But yeah, he'll be out until, let's see, the earliest he could come back would be 2025. And depending on when USA's are that year, could knock him out for those championships. Although second week in June, maybe he'll be back like right before USA's if he continues to train and continues to keep going.
Yeah, but no NCAAs. I mean, he would have been the prohibitive favorite in everything.
Huge favorite. Yeah,
because he's clearly better than a typical collegiate athlete at this level now when he's running 44-second lows and